no question that the most popular state to retire in usually goes to Florida. But in more recent years, many people are moving away from the idea of Florida being the best place to retire, and you'll see that Georgia is sneaking its way to the top of many people's list. And what if you're not quite ready to retire in, but you just want a great state to live in? Should you pick Georgia or should you pick Florida? Hi, I'm Sarah Mislowski, a local real estate agent here in the Northeast Metro Atlanta area, and my team and I specialize in helping people from all over the country relocate right here to the North Georgia area. I made a video a year ago comparing Florida and Georgia, and there was a ton of responses in the comments with lots of opinions about which state is better and why. You would think that these two states would have pretty similar, climates and all that kind of good stuff since they border each other and we're both in the deep south. However, they are two totally different worlds, especially when you compare Florida to the North Georgia area as opposed to South Georgia. Speaking of two totally different worlds, I grew up in South Georgia, and South Georgia and North Georgia are drastically different. In fact, I recently made a whole video diving deep into all the differences of South Georgia and North Georgia. You should check that out, and we're gonna link it right here. Okay, so let's get into it. What is so different about Georgia and Florida, and where in the world should you live? So one of the most obvious differences between Florida and Georgia is the weather. Something that Floridians have to deal with every year is hurricanes and tropical storms, which are so rare here in North Georgia. In fact, in 2022, Florida experienced a total of 5 tropical storms and 2 hurricanes. There were so many people that were still cleaning up from Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole. Someone commented on that video that said, after more than 3 decades of living here in Florida, I've never experienced a full year of real seasons. I'm tired of the Florida heat and the humidity. Georgia has no shortages of heat and humidity in the summer, but we do experience all 4 seasons, and it is so great. Because of the high humidity here in Georgia, all of our seasons can sometimes feel a little bit extreme. You get extreme colds, and when I say extreme cold, I mean like a 40s. A 40-degree day is cold, but it's not gonna last too long. We usually get 1 or 2 snow days in the winter, typically in January or February, and when I say snow days, I mean like flurries. A little bit of flurries are gonna fall down. Everyone's gonna freak out. It's gonna be so exciting. You're gonna love it. I love it. We have had a pretty mild year so far and no extreme weather. But like I said, there's still a lot to come in January and February when it gets a little bit colder. And like I said, cold, 40 degrees. Because this is Georgia and Georgia is such a humid state, you kind of have a lot of extremes in the weather. Something that people regularly ask about a lot is tornadoes. Tornadoes do happen in Georgia, but it's not to say that it's a very, very common thing. In my lifetime, I've never experienced or actually seen an actual tornado, and I grew up in South Georgia and I've lived here in North Georgia for almost 8 years. Now you're gonna get those weather alerts and they're gonna come on and they're gonna draw the boxes and they're gonna say we're in a tornado warning. So it's not to say that you may not ever experience one. However, it's very, very rare. And so we just kind of experience the thunderstorms. A unique thing, I was talking to a recent client and they said that the difference between a Florida rainstorm and a Georgia rainstorm is that in Florida they said that the rain is like really heavy, like big fat drops of rain, and like you just cannot drive in it. It's like this huge downpour. And they said the rain here in Georgia is just kind of like light rain. And I thought that was a very, very interesting perspective and didn't quite realize that that was something that they had noticed. So that might be something that might be a win for you if you're tired of those heavy, heavy downpours. So speaking of downpours, a lot of people also ask about flooding. People who move to Georgia from Florida always ask whether the house is in a flood zone whenever they're searching for a house. And sometimes you'll see the ratings on realtor.com or something like that. But you have to know that it is extremely rare to find a home in a flood zone, and it's not really something that you should worry about unless maybe you're next to a creek or a stream. Usually this question comes up because we have Lake Lanier right in our backyard, and people will ask if there's a history of flooding, and you'll be happy to know that this is something that in fact will never flood because the water levels are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers with a dam. So this is not something that happens. Many Floridians who relocate to Georgia are excited that they no longer have to pay for flood insurance, and they've also noticed that their home insurance drastically decreases because we don't have the same crazy inclement weather that you do down in Florida. This leads to one of the biggest differences, the cost of living between Georgia and Florida. Now, one of those big differences between Florida and Georgia is that Florida does not have income taxes. Here in Georgia, your income is taxed on a progressive scale ranging from 1% to almost 6% based on your income. My clients who've relocated from Florida have told me that even though they have to pay income taxes here in Georgia, their property taxes in Florida were so high that now that they're in Georgia with lower property taxes, they don't feel like they notice that difference because it balances out with their lower property taxes. Between the addition of flood insurance, high homeowners insurance, and because of all those natural disasters and the higher property taxes, the cost of living in Georgia is lower compared to Florida. Of course, home prices are going to vary greatly depending on where you are in both of those states. If you have a beachfront property in Florida, that's going to come with a pretty steep price tag than a home here, let's say in the middle of Georgia. But a home in Alpharetta, for example, is going to come with a much higher price point than many parts of Central Florida. Overall though, the general cost of living in Georgia is ranked lower than the cost of living in Florida. Someone commented that they were a South Florida native and their rent just skyrocketed. And they said, in their opinion, it's a matter of time before the rest of the state is far too expensive. So Georgia has also seen its fair share of price increases, and of course, we are feeling the effects of inflation and the craziness of the real estate market over the past couple of years. There are still many parts of Georgia that you can find a pretty good deal on housing. Now, that may not end up being the Northeast Metro Atlanta area. You may have to go a little bit further north, but we have a lot of great agent partners all throughout the state that we can connect you with if the Middle or South Georgia area is where you decide that is best for your budget. Someone else recently left a comment, it was kind of interesting, that they had lived in both Georgia and Florida, and they thought Florida was good for fun, retirement, or vacation, but not for living life to the full extent. They went on to say that jobs, people, business, basements, mountains, large acreage homes, great universities, easy drivable access to many states around, and especially the busiest airport in the world were the things that they felt like made Georgia a better state to live in. And then we had another person, it said, it really depends what you like. If you like beaches, Florida is for you. If you're into church, trails, parks, and annoyingly friendly people, Atlanta is for you. Annoyingly friendly. That's funny. We do get that a lot from our clients that relocate here. They say that Georgia is so friendly from where they're coming from. Obviously, Florida is more expensive. This person goes on to say, but it's more fun, in my opinion, why it's Florida for the win. These are all very good points, and I think a lot of people have a similar opinion about Florida. Because of the climate and the topography, it's a really great place for retirement or vacation. Don't get me wrong, I love to go visit Florida and the beaches, especially on the Gulf Coast. But it's not everyone's cup of tea when it comes to a place to live full time. We had a commenter, they phrased it very well by saying that you can live 10 different lives in Georgia. We've got the mountains, we've got the lakes, we've got a small coast that you can go visit if you want to go to the beach. We've got the bustling cities and also small country towns. I do love living in North Georgia for this very reason. I love being able to go to Lake Lanier and enjoy time out on the water, or go to the North Georgia mountains and hike and visit all of the wineries. But it's also cool to be able to drive to Savannah in about 5 hours or have a completely different experience. Or I can head south and be in Atlanta in an hour and go to a fancy restaurant or see a concert. I definitely don't think there is a shortage of fun here, but we don't have Disney or massive white sandy beaches. That sums it up perfectly. That is a great comparison of Georgia and Florida. So what do you think? Are you Team Florida or Team Georgia? If you are considering making a move to Georgia, you have to check out this video.